Tom Thibodeau was fired today as head coach, or just recently, just fired as head coach of the New York Knicks. And what's amazing about the Tibbs thing is, I mean, there's just so many different levels to it. The first part is that just comes to my mind is, gosh golly, I almost feel bad about, kind of clowning whoever asked Jalen Brunson the question. This is going back after they lose in the conference finals. There was a question, and Brunson kind of laughed it off when he was asked, whether or not Tibbs was the guy.
You talk about the confidence, obviously. I feel like nobody takes more criticism than Tom, and this team obviously has turned around during his tenure. Do you kind of feel that going forward he's the same guy to lift you guys the rest of the way, that next level?
Is that a real question right now?
Every time I turn on ESPN.
You just asked me if I believe that if he's the right guy. Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Come on.
I mean, I felt the exact same way. Is that really a question? Is this really a possibility? Now, if I'm being fair, how many of us knew that Tibbs had been there for 5 years? Or that Tibbs, guess his age, okay, it's 67. Right? But the Knicks reached the conference finals for the first time in 25 years, in his fifth year. They won 41, 37, 47, 50, 51 games. They've gotten better every year. They've gotten further in the playoffs the last 3 years. I guess I'm still just stunned. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't make some form of sense, right? Notoriously doesn't like to play his bench. They came upon a deep team, and they lost. But I think the mistake here is that we're judging result, not judging process. We're judging result, we're not judging process. And we can sit here, and he deserves some of the blame. And I thought it was a poorly coached last 52 seconds when they're up 9 points. But, I mean, just not guarding guys and missing free throws and turning the ball over is not Tibbs. It's just not. Does it technically fall under your purview because you're the head coach? Yeah. But any head coach tells you, it's like, what did you want me to do? What did you want me to do? So let me get this straight. The Knicks, who have been sort of a laughingstock organization, they finally seem to kind of figure some stuff out, and they make it to where they go conference semis, conference finals. They are climbing the ladder of success. Right? Climbing the ladder of success. They promptly fired Tom Thibodeau after 5 seasons, which is the longest anybody had lasted since Jeff Van Gundy. But Van Gundy went conference semis, lost in the finals, lost in the conference finals, lost in the first round. Then he was fired early on the next year. It just kind of worn out its welcome. I don't get it. I don't. It doesn't mean that Tom Thibodeau is the only coach available. It doesn't mean he's the best coach on earth. But he fit what they were trying to do. It mirrored with his best player in Jalen Brunson. And whether you want to judge it based upon results or you want to judge it based upon the process was better. It was better. And unfortunately, this is what we do in the NBA. And I'm sure that Tibbs had to sign off on the Karl Anthony Towns trade. Okay, but remember, Karl Anthony Towns was also a Leon Rose client. So the guy running the Knicks used to be an agent, and a good one. And he's a good dude. I'm not somebody who he didn't rep me, but he rep friends of mine, and everybody's like, he's a really good dude. I believe that. But this is it appears choosing Tibbs over choosing the player. Towns have been catching a beating because he doesn't play much defense, doesn't appear in great shape, and he took some bad shots, especially in that last game. Jalen Brunson had taken a little bit of a beating. How many times did people say, hey, he's not good enough to be your best player and win a championship with? And we can, and there'll be people who say, and this is not inaccurate, it is accurate, that they only beat the Celtics when the Celtics' best player got hurt, but they were beating the Celtics regardless of that. Now, they had to come from 20 down. It feels like a complete buzzkill to anyone trying to, as I have done, put a positive note and thought on the Knicks season. The Knicks had a successful season. They won 51 games. They got into the conference finals. They got to game 6 of the conference finals. Now, that's judging result. Process-wise, gotten better and better and better. They changed the roster. The best players bought in. Will he win you a champion with a coach win you a championship? He's never gotten past the conference finals. I understand that. But unless you're bringing in a proven guy who's won conference championships and gotten to an NBA finals and won a conference championship, what are you actually doing? And it shows a continuing loyalty to the players above that of the coaches. Above that of the coaches. It does feel like Leon Rose is, one, listening to fans, and then maybe listening to Karl Anthony Towns, who's his former client. And because he was taking such a beating in the media, now this takes the blame off of his shoulders. It puts the blame squarely on Tibbs for losing that last series. Whatever they say, it doesn't actually matter. Reality of it is, when you lose a series in the conference finals, the furthest the Knicks had gotten in 25 years, especially the way Enlisted lost game 1, and the first change you make is that of the head coach, you're blaming him for the losses. And again, I don't think it's fair, but I'm not going to lead with it's not fair. Life's not fair. Coaching's not fair. It's a great job, it's a great profession, a terrible job. Because you can have an incredibly successful year and turn around everything within the franchise, and they just don't think you're good enough to get them over the hump, and they move on. The Shams tweet was, the Knicks are relieving Tom Thibodeau of his duties as head coach. Sources tell ESPN. Tibbs led the Knicks to the first Eastern Conference Finals in 25 years, made the playoffs 4 or 5 years, led the Knicks to consecutive 50-plus win season for the first time since the 90s. The Knicks are singularly focused on the pursuit of a championship and believe a new voice will serve as the focus for the organization's next step. Sources said, after 5 seasons with the Knicks, Tom Thibodeau is out as head coach. I can only think of one guy who has not won an NBA championship who you should call. Right? You would think it'd be Jay Wright. Because he's coached, 2 NCAA championship teams, because he's Philly, obviously not New York, but he's incredibly respected. You got 3 Villanova Wildcats. And I think Mike Malone's probably the other guy. You can only hire somebody who's won championships if you're going to fire Tom Thibodeau. Only do it. Because otherwise, what are we doing?